Hello, fellow scientists. Welcome to the fourth video of Mr. Mormon's Ecology series. Today we will be learning about community interactions.
Okay, we're going to start with a couple of definitions. The first one is adaptations. Adaptations are the behaviors and physical characteristics of a species which help it to survive. Every organism has a variety of adaptations that are suited to its specific living conditions. So let's look at a few examples. Camouflage. These delicate spiny bugs are a perfect match for their branch habitat. The more an organism resembles its surroundings, the less likely it is that a predator will notice it. Some animals, such as flounder and chameleon, can even change their colors to match a variety of settings. This sea urchin sends a clear message to the predators. Don't touch. Porcupines, hedgehogs, and cactuses all use the same spiny strategy. After a few painful encounters, a predator will look for less prickly prey. A frog this bright certainly can't hide. How could such a color be an advantage? The bright red and blue of this poison arrow frog warn predators not to eat it. Glands on the frog's back that release toxic chemicals make it a bad choice for a meal. Which way is this butterfly fish swimming? The black dot on its tail is a false eye. A predator may bite this end of the fish, allowing it to escape with only part of its tail missing. If you've ever been stung by a bee, you'd probably keep your distance from this insect, but actually this bee is a harmless fly. The fly's resemblance to a stinging bee protects it from birds and other predators who are fooled into staying away. Every organism has a variety of adaptations that are suited to its specific living conditions. The adaptations of the organisms in the desert ecosystem shown in this picture create unique roles for each organism. An organism's particular role, or how it makes its living, is called its niche. A niche is how an organism fits into its ecosystem. A niche includes the type of food the organism eats, how it obtains this food, and which other species use the organism as food. The niche also includes when and how the organism reproduces and the physical conditions it requires to survive. An organism's niche may also include how it interacts with other organisms. In the saguaro cactus community shown in this picture, you can observe a range of such interactions. Now, there's three major types of interactions that we need to know among organisms. They are competition, predation, and symbiosis. So the first one we'll talk about is competition. Competition is the struggle between organisms to get the limited resources in an ecosystem. Now, often we think of fighting when we think of competition, and that certainly does happen in nature. Here we see lions and hyenas and jackals all competing over an animal carcass. But competition doesn't always mean fighting. These guys are in competition, and they're not fighting. They're in competition because they both eat the same foods. Just because the deer is bigger doesn't mean it's always going to win the competition. Imagine one year there's twice as many rabbits born as normal. What effect would that have on the deer? Sometimes you get competition between members of the same species. These these are red deer. These male red deer are competing during the rut. The winner of this competition will get to win the right to mate with the female red deer in the area. Even plants compete. Green plants cannot survive for very long without sunlight, and they become unhealthy if they do not obtain minerals and water. When plants are growing close together in a forest, for example, the tallest plants will receive most sunlight. The smaller plants will receive less sunlight because the taller plants shade them from the sun's rays. Ecologists say that all of the plants in the forest are in competition with each other. They are competing for the sunlight. In a dense forest, many seedlings which germinated in the spring may not survive the winter because they did not receive enough sunlight to make and store food. Okay, the next relationship we'll talk about is predation. In this relationship, the predator hunts, kills, and eats its prey. Predators can be large and fierce, like these common examples we would all recognize, or they can be quite a bit small. Here's an unusual example of predation. This moon snail is a predatory mollusk. It hunts these other mollusks, and it has the moon snail uses its large inflatable foot to grab hold of its prey. The mucus-lined foot acts as a support to grab hold of the mollusk. The moon snail then uses acids to soften the hard shell of its prey. It then starts scraping away at the softened shell with its sharp, straw-like tongue called the radula. After the hole is complete, the moon snail sucks out the inside of its prey. This process can take from hours to days, depending on the shell's thickness. Some moon snails give up before it even makes it through the shell, and then you end up with, a wound or a scar like that on the shell of a mollusk that survived the attack. The last type of relationships I'd like to talk about are symbiosis. Symbiosis is a close relationship between two species that benefits at least one of the species. Now, there's several different kinds of symbiosis, and I'm going to show you a few examples of each. Mutualism is a relationship in which both species benefit. They're both getting something good out of the relationship. You might have seen a lichen like this growing on a rock. A lichen is a good example of mutualism. It's actually not one organism. It's two organisms living together. A fungus provides the structure or shape of the relationship, and an algae lives with the fungus and does photosynthesis, providing food for both. This ant cares for and protects these aphids, which secrete a sweet fluid that the ant eats. They're both getting something good. These oxpeckers live on the back of the hippopotamus and pick at the insects and parasites that bother the hippo. This butterfly is getting nectar from the flower. In return, the flower gets helped with its reproduction. The butterfly will be carrying pollen from flower to flower, helping it to reproduce. This might be my favorite example. This is a Nile crocodile and an Egyptian plover. The plover hops into the mouth of the crocodile and picks the bits of food that remain between the crocodile's teeth. It will also remove parasites like leeches that can attach to the animal's gum. The plover gets a meal, the crocodile gets its teeth cleaned. The smaller fish here are called cleaner wrasse. They swim into the mouths and gills of the larger fish, eating parasites and getting food scraps. These larger fish, and the crocodile in the last example, they never eat the cleaners because they need them. Food scraps that get left stuck in the teeth and parasites weaken the larger animal and make it less able to survive. So these little cleaner fish and the Egyptian plover bird are helping the larger animal to survive. It's a mutualistic relationship, and the big animals appreciate that and don't eat the little guys. Okay, another type of symbiosis is commensalism. Commensalism is a relationship where one organism benefits, but the other is neither helped nor harmed. The barnacles growing on this whale instead of on a rock are being brought to where the food is. The whale is unharmed by this relationship. The barnacles are getting a benefit. The organism on the left is magnified hundreds of times. It's a pseudoscorpion. They live on the backs underneath the shell of this, under the wing covers of the cerambycid beetle shown to the right. The beetle is totally unaffected by these pseudoscorpions. They're just hitching a ride. Maybe you've seen these guys before. when watching videos of sharks. They're called remora. They swim along under the shark. They have this specialized scales on their head that allows them to almost suck right onto the shark. They get a free ride, they get protection by living with the shark, and they also get food scraps. Food scraps that would be too small for the shark to eat, but it's a meal for the remora. The remora is getting lots of benefit from this relationship. The shark gets nothing, so it's commensalism. And the last relationship is parasitism. This is where one organism, the parasite, lives on or inside another organism, the host, and harms it. It's harming it because it's sucking its blood or getting energy from the host. Parasite gets a benefit, the host gets harmed. Leeches, mosquitoes, and ticks are all blood-sucking parasites. Fleas are as well. This parasitic wasp lays its eggs on a caterpillar. When the eggs hatch, the young wasp larvae feed on the caterpillar. Sea lamprey are gruesome jawless fish that have a mouth like a sucker lined with teeth. They attach to fish, and they're parasites because they suck their blood, much like a tick or a leech would do. Even the plant kingdom contains parasites. These are daughter plants. They live on other plants and grow their roots right into the stem of the other plant, which they get nutrients and water from, being parasites. They're harming the plants that they're living on. Okay, that's about it. I just want to finish with this one last idea. In this diagram, we see 3 different species of warbler that all live in the same area. Now, these are very similar birds, but they do not all have the exact same niche. As a matter of fact, no 2 organisms can occupy the exact same niche in any ecosystem. Can you think of why? Why can't 2 organisms occupy the same niche? It's because of competition. These warblers all feed in different parts of the tree to limit the amount of competition between them. By each species feeding in a different part of the tree, they ensure their own species' survival by not having to compete too much for the exact same insects. Okay, that's it for today. As always, if you have any questions, please be prepared to ask them tomorrow in class.